Hi, my name is Alexis Kulani Woodard. I am the Associate Artistic Director of Compagnia de Columbari and the Directing Fellow at Rattlestick Theatre. Sisters in the Round is dedicated to fostering an inclusive and empowering community within the theater industry, specifically for intergenerational Black women and femmes. Today, I'm here in the round with the fabulous Lili-Anne Brown. Lili-Anne, will you introduce yourself to us, please?
Hi, I'm Lili-Anne Brown, and I am a director in the American Theater.
Amazing. I have to tell you before we start talking, I saw your Two Trains Running this summer,
Oh my
and
God, where'd you see it?
I saw it where I was in Hartford when I saw it. I was in my last semester at Yale, and one of my friends, Jelani Allen, is actually in the company, so he drove over to go see it. I thought it was so fabulous. And I had kind of been in a period, weirdly, where I've seen a lot of August Wilson productions, like in the past several months, and I have to say it was like hands down my favorite. I thought it was so well done and so beautiful. So just congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. August Wilson is a recent love challenge
Hmm.
obsession for me. Really, really recent. And usually people are kind of surprised to hear that. But, I've been exposed to August Wilson's work for most of my life. And I always thought that, this is amazing and beautiful. And I love it, but in sort of an academic way. And
Hmm.
then the one thing I knew or thought I knew was that, but unfortunately, it's not for me. I really believed for like the last 20, 25, 30 years, like, oh, I'm never going to be allowed access to August Wilson's work. That is just not
Hmm.
work I'm going to be allowed to do. I had not seen any productions ever directed by women. They existed, they just
Talk
really
about it.
weren't talked about.
Hmm.
And they were very, very rare.
Hmm.
So I just did not know that was work I was going to be allowed any access to. And funny enough, how I did first get access to the work was first of all, August Wilson's widow, Costanza, was it has been very focused on right. She runs his estate,
Hmm.
and she was like, we got to do something about the fact that women really aren't directing this work.
Yeah,
And
wow.
and the people who have been producing it and the men who have been directing it were sort of using August's words as the excuse for that, because he did say that he said that he only wanted Black men directing his work. But I think that needed to be taken with a grain of salt, because at the time that he said that, men was literally default for director.
Right.
It's so telling, right? That he
It's
would
like, do
say,
you want
like,
a black
only
man
Black
or a white
men
man?
should direct my work, because just the thought of a woman directing, it's not like he didn't know women directed, but I'm just like, that's how default it
Hmm.
was even 20 years ago,
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
like a director is a man.
Hmm.
And that if you say director, you just mean man. And if
Yeah.
like, and so she definitely wanted to make sure that was turning around,
Mm.
as well as, hilariously, uh, it was the Huntington Theatre, which is an amazing regional theater in Boston, and they were doing this, like, they had this $100 million renovation of Huntington Theatre was doing this massive renovation of their historic theater, and as well as they were in artistic director transition. So essentially, they didn't have an artistic director,
Mm.
and they knew that they wanted to reopen when they did their big, huge, grand reopening of the historic theater. They wanted to reopen with August Wilson because they premiered
Hmm.
a few of his works, and so they knew they wanted to do Joe Turner's. And
Mm.
the funny thing is, there was a bit of while there was no artistic director, they were just kind of, it's a bit of the inmates were running the asylum for a while, for like a year. And there was a fantastic young Black woman there who was a producer. And I think that she floated my name. And then I actually don't know which came first, chicken or egg. And then I ended up meeting Costanza when I was at Oregon Shakespeare Festival. We were just there at the same time. Like, we did not even know, like, that I didn't know she was there. She didn't know I was there. She was there because, and this was the season, like, right coming out of shutdown. I was doing Once on This Island, and she was there because a production of How I Learned What I Learned was in production. And so my agent's kind of trying to get me set up to meet and have this meeting with Costanza Wilson. And they're like, well, she's in Oregon, so she's on this time right now. And I was like, I'm in Oregon. We were staying in the same building at the time.
Wow.
We were like living in the same, we were just being housed in the OSF housing. Yeah. So I was like, can you call her and tell her I'll meet her downstairs in the coffee shop? And I had a meeting, and I found out that and the funny thing is how this all came to be feels like chance, but I don't know, to me, really felt like divine order. Like, it really, it just was, what a wild thing to happen, because I feel fairly strongly that if the artistic director had been in place at Huntington, I would not have been chosen for that. Because they tend in this business to like want to put you in a genre, and that's what you can do. So I've often been very confusing to people, because they're like, you do musicals. Wait, you do new plays. Wait, you do comedy. Wait, what? Like, I'm not supposed to do all of that. And then certainly if I do those things, musicals and new plays and comedies, then I shouldn't be touching the classics. And the funny thing is, as I began to approach the work that I was in such reverence of, and also so terrified of, because who am I? I'm not a Wilsonian. I'm not supposed to be doing this. I'm not one of these vaunted men who do this work, and they've done the canon, and they've done this, and they knew August Wilson, and they used to key with him, and that, right? Like, it just, all of that was in my head. And as always, as with every play, as I try to remind the people that I mentor, someone needed to remind me, I had to remind me that, like, end of the day, open the book, read the words on the page. That is the play. That is the play. That is always the play. And as I was reading it, I was like, this isn't the play that I saw the last time I saw this play.
Yeah.
And what struck me, and then I began to be really voracious, and I was like, am I wrong about all of this work? And I began to really like go through the canon and realize that, like, I had seen a lot of productions that were essentially kind of museum pieces. And I didn't realize it, because I'm thinking like, oh, these are these productions by these amazing, directors that I know. And it turns out it turns out I wasn't connecting with the work, because in many ways, the way the work was being approached wasn't reaching me. And I think that maybe we can be too reverent of our classics. And sort of like put them on a pedestal and be like, this is serious Black work about the struggle, right? And then everything becomes that. And so I'm reading Joe Turner's, and it is serious Black work about the struggle, but it is also extremely funny. I find it funny right now that, like, they're reviving it on Broadway.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The Debbie Allen directed,
Yes, queen.
right? I'm so excited about it. And as soon as they came out saying, like, Taraji P. Henson and Cedric the Entertainer
Mm-hmm.
are playing the Hollies, Bertha
Mm-hmm.
and Seth, everybody was like, "Oh, what are they doing? They're just gonna like ruin a classic. And why are these fools playing? Like these people who do this kind of thing? Why are they playing these roles?" And I was like, you actually haven't read the play.
Mm.
That's great casting. The
Mm-hmm.
Hollies are really funny, really, really funny,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of and a little wild, um, a little loose.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually going to be great casting. But seeing that let me know, like it was kind of a vindication of what
Mm.
I feel like I experienced, which was that, like, we've been told this thing and this is how it is. And this is how we're supposed to think about it. And this is how we're
Yeah.
supposed to feel about it. And instead of letting the work speak for itself and be reinterpreted by every artist of the time, which
Mm-hmm.
is why work exists, like that's what we're supposed to be doing as artists.
Mm-hmm.
So that experience sort of cracked open a lot for me, not just about August Wilson's work, but about how I was approaching work and the narratives that I had around my work, around the work of others, around what I should be doing and how work
Yeah.
should be done. That was a really kind of formative experience.
I really resonate with so much of what you're talking about there, even just down to I mean, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is a dream play for me to direct. But over the past, I mean, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years, just looking at since that play came into like my dream project list, I've been looking at, okay, who's producing August Wilson and who's directing August Wilson. And without fail, it's almost always a man who's directing it, and that even just subconsciously, I don't think that I noticed how that was affecting like my ability to see myself in that role until you just named it. Um, but I was also, it was a play. So I just graduated from the MFA program at Yale in May, and it was one of the plays that I was thinking about for my thesis. I ended up going a different way, but it was up there in like the top three. I really want to do that play. But I was nervous about doing it then because similar to what you're saying, I was like, I don't want to do it in the same, like way that I've been seeing all the August Wilsons be done. And I have this, slightly more abstracted, slightly more surreal idea of what the world might feel like. And I was really nervous about that. And had a conversation with Marcus Gardley, who's on faculty there now and is an amazing human, wonderful
That
playwright.
is so
Um,
amazing that y'all have Marcus Gardley on your faculty because he is
It was such a get. It was such
awesome.
a
I
get.
love
I
him.
was so happy. I mean, the other play that I was thinking about was Black Odyssey, which is also on my dream list, one day.
Yes.
Um, yeah, he's amazing. And we just had an amazing conversation where he was talking about conversation that he'd had with Costanza about the work and about more women directing the work, and about wanting to, like for him, wanting to see it done differently and approached in different ways. And I really resonate with this idea of like not wanting our classics to turn into museum pieces. Um, as someone who like I love the classics, like that's actually so much of my jam, classics and adaptations. But I think that the thing that I get so excited about is how we can read read the contemporary into them, and
Yeah.
how it's always going to be, it's going to be individual coming from me,
Right.
as a director and as an artist. I want to dig in a little bit on something you were just mentioning about branding, like yourself as an artist and the work that you are quote unquote like not supposed to do, or the rooms that you aren't supposed to be in. Because I've been thinking about that a lot now. I've just moved to New York, and most of the directing work that I've done before now has been regional. And I'm thinking about how to introduce myself, you know, for lack of a better phrase, to this community of artists. And thinking I have lots of passions and lots of things that I want to do, but I'm like, okay, but if I start with like this kind of play, is that now the only kind of play that anyone will ever think of me to do, you know? So I'm curious about just your journey in selecting work and in finding work and how you've managed to have such a diverse portfolio in like the contents of things that you do.
Yeah. My journey is really, really quite wild and weird. And so I often, I hope that it can be inspiring, but at the same time, I don't want to come off like, oh, anyone can do this. It's so easy. Like
Well,
I
it's all
feel,
individual. There's no blueprint,
yeah,
you
I
know?
like in many ways, I feel really bizarrely privileged to have been in the sort of failure place that I was in. And let me explain that. Like my career is really entirely born of rejection and the fact
Mhm.
that because no one would let me direct anything, I had to essentially found a company and do it myself.
Mhm.
And that's not so unusual. That's the story of lots of people. But for me, yeah, it was literally, so I had a 15 plus year career as an actor. During my career as an actor, it became very evident to me that I needed to be on the other side of the table because I began to not like my attitude as a director,
Mm.
as an actor, and I felt shitty about it. Right, like you don't, as a professional actor, you don't want to be sitting there thinking like, "Damn, that's how we gonna do it." Oh, I don't know. I was like, oh, that's terrible. I don't want to be feeling that. Like, I don't want to be thinking that. I don't want to be feeling that. That makes me a shitty actor, right? But I found that I was thinking that a lot.
Mhm.
Um, and I was like, okay, well, if you so bad, like if you think you can do better, then you need to go do better. Like you can't just be thinking that. Like, what are you gonna do? And I had directed in college essentially out of necessity. Like literally in college, there were times that I was volunteered. Like people would be like, oh, shit. Like some class thing would need a director and everybody would just kind of like, in the movies, like they're like, who's a volunteer? And everybody steps back and there's one chump still standing there. I was like always that chump. Or people would just be like, she'll do it. She's always talking some kind of shit. Like, let her be in charge. She's really bossy. um, and also my senior year, well, basically the whole time I was in school, I was like, there's never, can there be a Black musical? I'm a Black musical theater person. There's never been a Black musical. Can we do a Black? And I became very determined that I would not leave that institution without there never having been a Black musical. I just got, I gotta be in my bonnet about it.
Mhm.
I just was like, how is it? It's the 90s. What are we talking about?
Mhm.
And so I did direct the first Black musical at my university. Just out
Amazing.
of sheer, just kind of out of spite, like out of like, fine, I will raise the money myself and pay for it myself, and we'll do it in this shack with nothing and like a table and chair, and did it like literally. It was Ain't Misbehaving because it's all I could afford.
Yeah. Mhm.
And it was the cheapest thing to do. And I could cast, I only needed 5 people. They only needed one costume. We only needed, right? Like so that's what we did. And so that's sort of my background in directing. I didn't study it. I don't have an MFA. I don't have any of that, right? So when I start as an actor was like, I am dissatisfied with my options. I'm dissatisfied with the work that is being produced. I'm dissatisfied with the work that is produced and the fact that I am not seeing the lenses. I'm not seeing a diverse array of lenses. I feel like everything is from one lens. And so I feel that the world seems distorted. And feeling that more and more and more. And then I'm from Chicago. We do Everybody Starts a Theater Company, right? We do like, I've got a barn, let's start a theater. I got a storefront. This used to be a, this used to be a 7-Eleven. Let's put theater in it. That's what Chicago is. And so I had been a part of several theater companies, and I was a casting director for a while in these theater companies. And that was born from my day job. I was an agent, which is crazy and a whole side quest. But I did that for 5 years. So I just knew a lot of people. I had a lot of networks. And so in these theater companies, people would be like, oh, you're the girl that kind of knows everybody. Casting director is a great spot for you. So I was doing that, but I was like, well, I want to direct the plays. And so in several of these theater companies, I had begun to be sort of the secret sauce. Like, I was casting the plays, I would be the associate director. And what a lot of people didn't know was I often had selected the play. The plays were often shows that I had pitched, and they would allow me to cast it. And then they would allow me to be the associate director, which meant a lot of times I was essentially shadow directing plays, and then a white man was taking credit. And like getting an award, and and I did that for several years, and it really ate my soul. It was soul eating, but eventually I got asked to like be part of another starter company, and I said, like, I will not do this. I cannot do this anymore unless you have to promise me I'm gonna direct. And this group of people kept their promises. And so that's where Bailiwick Chicago, the company that I ended up becoming the artistic director of, was where I did my Chicago premiere. The funny thing is, I had been directing summer stock for years at that point. Huge, big shows like Cabaret and Sweet Charity and Buddy Holly, these big things. But like, don't nobody care. Don't nobody care what you go do in a cornfield. Like, you can have the biggest credits, right? Like, and it wouldn't matter. When you're in the city, everybody, like, the agenda is like, well, who the fuck is you and what have you done? And if we don't care about it, then it didn't happen and it doesn't matter. Which, you're in New York, where that is really the prevalent mindset. So my hat's
it's
off.
The word on the street.
So basically, at my company at Bailiwick Chicago, I started programming things for me to be able to show my work. So the first thing that I did was Passing Strange. And also, like, part of my saying I was dissatisfied with the work that was being done was, like, in musical theater at that time, first of all, there was very little musical theater that was being done in the city. You had to go out to the suburbs to these sort of like big commercial houses to see a musical. And, you damn sure know they weren't going to be no Black musical, or, it would be something, maybe there's a Black person in it who gets to, like, I don't know, scream some riffs in Act 2. Yay. Right. So I just wanted to do the work that I was not seeing. Right. I have just as much a passion for the Wild Party and like the work of Michael John LaCusa, Marie Christine. I have just as much of a passion for like Dessa Rose by Ahrens and Flaherty as I do for like a Passing Strange and Stu's work. Right. I just wanted to see different work instead of like Mamma Mia over and over and over and over. Like, what are we doing? And to just see none of this work. It literally was like, if there wasn't like a hit Broadway tour, then you're not ever going to see it. in Chicago. And
Yeah.
as somebody that loves musical storytelling, I was like, no, absolutely not. So here comes my company, and I'm doing that kind of work. And so essentially, like, all of my first opportunities, I gave myself. I mean, I literally had to go into debt. I didn't
Mm.
not just go broke, but go into debt, like, because for, like a 4-year period there,
Wow.
like a 4 or 5 year period, I was the only like, no one would hire me but me.
And
So
just
I
really
hired
betting
me,
on
but I
yourself.
couldn't afford to pay me anything.
Hmm.
So I knew that's what I was going to have to do. And also I had no fee or salary for being the artistic director of a company, which is like a 60-hour a week job at
Yep.
least. But that sacrifice was worth it. We would not be speaking now if I had not done that, because nobody was around to tell me, like, oh, actually, the times are changing. You should go to grad school. All the old heads that I asked, like, what do I do? I'm trying to become a director. No one's giving me any opportunities. They were like, well, you just got to be an associate, and you got to, like, you can assist me and maybe
Yeah.
assist that guy. And, if you assist enough, you'll just move up. And that did not happen for me
Hmm.
at all. If I had not said, okay, I'm going to take over this company, and I know that that job takes up so much space that, like, I will not be able to have a day job or any other job, but also this job pays $0. Is it worth it to me? And I, so that's what I mean when I say, like, privileged, because I feel like even being able to make that sacrifice is a privilege, because, like, what if I had had kids? I couldn't just decide I'm gonna go into
Yeah.
debt. What if I had already been in debt? I can't just
Mm.
decide to go into debt, right? So to have the privilege of, I was in the position to say, I'm gonna go broke on this because I'm gonna bet on myself.
Yeah. I mean, and that also, it just points to such deep belief in yourself, and your art and your work and your, um, the place that you believe that the voice that you believe that you deserved, like in this craft. One of my, the chair of the program at Yale, Liz Diamond, she always says, like, no one knows that they need you as a director until you show them. Like, you have to make your own voice into the world. Like, no one's out there looking for, like, the voice that they didn't think they think they don't have. Um, and that just really, reminded me a lot of that. Speaking of, like, also on the same tip about just really believing in yourself, I'm curious about your experience as a Black woman, in a lot of these spaces that are majority male, majority white, and how you maintain, like, the fullness of yourself. Like, I've definitely been in theater spaces where, I mean, my upbringing in theater, I grew up in a very small town in the south of Georgia. And I just remember so vividly, I think it was my junior year of high school, we did All Shook Up, the musical. And the whole time I was in high school, I was just, like, waiting for my chance to, like, really get a role and, like, to really be able to do something in the theater. And when they selected that show, I was so excited because it has, like, a number of characters in it that are actually Black. And we had just enough Black people at my school, across the high school, to do it. So I was like, yes, they have to cast us. Me and my best friend, who's another young Black girl at the time. And then, MTI, I guess, like, for the junior, they make this exception that if you don't have the right demographic, you can, cast it according to class, and that can be the issue in the script instead of race. And so that's, of course, what they did. And so the whole cast was white, and it was a class problem. And I like, from that, and just being in some, rehearsal rooms, working with directors where I felt like I had to shrink myself, or in offices working with people, I was like, this feels like the antithesis of what theater is about, where, like, we can come in and be whole and authentic and empathetic to other people and their identities, that, like, that's not always the truth of actually working in a theater. And so I'm curious about how you have, encountered that and maintained just, your authenticity, through those experiences.
Yeah. Oof. That's so real. And I think that's definitely part of what I was going through as an actor,
Mm.
is I was invariably the only Black person in the room, or maybe there would be one other, and it just over and over and over, you know. Or, you know, you could be part of, especially because I do musical theater, you know, there's like, you're doing ragtime and there's like the Harlem chorus. And so you're in this thing feeling segregated because it's literally segregated. Like it's telling a segregation story, or it's telling a, you know, so you're like, oh, I'm in this fabulous thing. And those people over there are like all in corsets and sipping tea. And we're all talking about, please stop killing us.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're having very different experiences right now. So I think having enough of those kinds of experiences, like I knew what kind of room I wanted to create. And that's always been the most important thing to me. Because I knew what kind of room I was sick of being in. And I had this sort of dream, you know, I just felt a lot like it doesn't have to be this hard. It doesn't have to be this fraught. It doesn't have to be this like cautious, like where everybody's sort of like walking on eggshells, or it's as if everything is going to blow up any moment. Like we're all so precious with our little egos or whatever. And I was just like, what is that? We are supposed to be playing. That is just wild to me. And also like not being able to bring my full self, like you said, into rooms, feeling like people wanted. And the funny thing is, I very often was bringing my full self into rooms and it would get a reaction. And I was like, ugh, like, because I know how to code switch or whatever. I prefer not to, though. So I sometimes will just get tired and be like, I'm not doing that. And then, and I found that as I started being like, you know, I'm not doing that. And then you once you stop, you get kind of addicted to like, well, now I'm just me all the time. Yeah. And once I kind of started doing that in rebellion, I found that it was difficult to go backwards. And now I can't really find it at all. I'm just like this all the time, which is funny because it's, you know, it gets you reacted to one way as an actor and also as a director in the American theater, where people expect me to have an MFA and people expect me to do what I call talking in cursive. And I can and I could, but it is not my first. It's just not what I think to do now. Like, it's just not the first thing that I think of. I have become very unfiltered. I've just become I'm an artist. These are my thoughts. This is how I get down. I like to be in my vernacular. I am from the South Side of Chicago, and I think that's glorious. I think that's part of who I am, and I don't want to homogenize that really for anyone, because aren't I supposed to be valued for my distinct point of view? And so if I feel like when there's this expectation that you're going to come in comporting yourself and speaking a certain way and about a certain set of things that somebody decided, this is what we talk about. This is what's academic rigor and rigor in the work. This is what that looks like. This is what that sounds like. And I am like, fuck that. I don't want to. I don't think I have to. I don't think I should. I think there's room for that for everybody, right? Like,
I love that. Yeah.
Right now, I'm in a lot of conversation with George C. Wolfe, which is a whole dream come true.
Yeah.
And I feel like he doesn't do that, but he does, but he doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, he's himself. And as somebody that I like, I don't think I could look up to anyone more in the American theater.
Yeah.
And it feels, it's heartening to have a conversation with him and just hear him express himself in a way that feels genuine, and like he doesn't have, this man is insanely educated and eloquent, and he doesn't feel the need to like make me know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was very heartening to me, because as I do bigger and bigger work and deal with fancier and fancier institutions, and being put on the cover of SDC Journal and interviewed for that, things like that, I get nervous. Like sometimes I get a little imposter syndrome where I'm like, should I be speaking differently? Should I present myself in a way that is going to be, I don't know. And then I make myself breathe and calm down and just be myself, because honestly, that's more comfortable, and it's just what I want to do. And even though it is a little rebellious piece of me, I also just want, especially us, especially Black people, to feel comfortable bringing in whatever they're bringing in, being however they are, just to be comfortable being yourself. You don't have to be pretentious. You don't have to be away. You don't have to anything. Whenever I do Black work, the first thing I say on day one is, I need this to be said loudly. There are as many ways to be Black as there are Black people. And so when you're approaching work like August Wilson, where I think there are people in the room scared that their Blackness is not enough, or it's not right, or it's not the August Wilson kind of Blackness, like I used to be scared, right? I think it's important for me to come in authentic in order to encourage other people, right? You have to lead by example.
Yeah.
Right. And if I want people to bring their full selves to a room, then I have to do the same thing. Right.
I think that's really beautiful. And, you're giving that same gift now back to, all the, hopefully, the young Black girls who listen to this podcast going into theater, who are having these same questions, and that permission to walk in and be oneself is really special. It's really special. I also want to ask you one more question before we wrap up about how mentorship plays a part in your practice. I heard you mention it earlier about people you mentor and leading a room. I noticed that you're one of the mentor directors for the Drama League assistantships that are coming up.
I was going to bring that up because I'm doing my Rainies next year, and you love my Rainies, and I was going to be like, okay, when we get off here, can I talk to you about this?
Let's
Do you want to apply for this Drama League thing? Because
it's not a problem, but it's not a problem at all. I was gonna say I just did this the program, the Drama League Iron Grade Assistantship. I worked with Shelley Williams on the Notebook tour, which I was gonna say, how that's the a different kind of mentorship. It was my first kind of experience in a commercial theater experience or on tour, so I learned so much from that. That I just got by virtue of this program. So I think it's an amazing program. I cannot believe you're doing Ma Rainey. I still would like to talk to you about it. Man, yeah. So I would love to just have you talk a little bit about just how you approach mentorship.
Mentorship is perhaps the largest and most important part of my artistic practice. And I have, I feel like, this is supposed to be a secret, but I do so many interviews that I feel like it's starting to come out that I have a fellowship that is just unofficially the Lil Brown Fellowship. That like I just am doing. It is totally an unofficial thing. Like it started out as a joke where people were like, you have all these acolytes. Like, it's like you, the Lil Brown Fellowship. And I was like, yeah, I take mentorship super duper seriously. And there is a group of, earlier career Black directors that essentially I decided to take on because they asked for it, because I saw something in them that reminded me of me. Like, I think they're very specifically, most of these people, not all, because I actually encourage them to go to grad school if that's a thing that they think they want to do, or like depending on what exactly they want to do in the American theater. I sometimes encourage grad schools, sometimes not. But essentially, when I have met people that I like, feel like I get it. I get where you are. I get why maybe other people might not see you or give you opportunities. So come over here because I think you're in my lane and I think I can help you.
Yeah.
And it becomes a very close relationship. I'm really, really close with all my mentees and I'm really in there. Like I'm talking to them quite often and being like, what are you doing? What do you need? How can I help? I'm instrumental in getting them internships and fellowships and just vetting theaters, vetting people that they want to work with, but just also just life stuff because being a director is a whole ass lifestyle on top of
Mm-hmm.
being a career. It will
Mm-hmm.
take your life. It is your whole, like, it's hard to have life outside of it. And so yeah, so that's it. Mentorship is so serious for me that I basically have a fellowship. Like I just got a bunch of money I got a big grant from
Amazing.
the Walder Foundation. And
Wow.
so for me, being able to trickle a little bit of that down, because I want to actually plan a thing where everybody that's in the fellowship that doesn't live in Chicago, because a couple of them do, I want to like fly them here, put them up in an Airbnb for like a weekend. We go to see some shows. We talk to some people that I put together. Like I really want to like do a retreat or something for them.
Yeah.
But also just like whatever I can give, because if I get this big ass grant and I can trickle that down a little bit to some other people, that's I think helpful. But yeah, mentorship's my jam. So if
That's
you want to talk about
amazing.
that after this, we should talk about it.
Let's have a chat. That's really amazing. It's been so great to talk to you. And I was so excited to chat with you after having seen your work and hearing. I mean, I know Regan, the creator of this podcast, that you all have worked together and how much she adores you as well. We go way back. So it's really been a pleasure, and thank you so much for
It's
sharing your time and your
wonderful to meet
wisdom.
you. Thank you so much.
Well, that's the episode, folks. Come back for the next one.